The show is made possible in part by its supporting sponsors: Blue Water Power Group of Companies, Joe's Discount Tire, and AskGuy.ca. I look forward to all these interviews. I'm really loving this new format, and I say it often. I'm reconnecting with some people that I've known for many, many years. This gentleman I met, do you know, it was 35 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
I know. That's hard to believe.
Allan Hill, nice to see you.
I know. Really good to see you, Dave.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because when I reach out to people and I say, hey, I'd really like to talk to you and have an interview, and then and you mentioned before we just started here, like, gets your brain thinking. And I'm like, wow, I was 19 years old when I met you.
Yeah, you were young coming in.
Yeah, I had a little wet behind the ears, and and we met working at Mr. Mike's Variety Club.
Yeah. That was we were the alumni. We kind of came up with that right. That one time was like, and I would run into you sometimes, like at Rob Harwood's place and
Christmas parties.
Yeah, and really good friend of mine, and so it was good that we had some friends in common, like good friends in common that we didn't really know. That's I know Dave, and and so then and
pleasantly surprised. There's Allan.
And same with Jay, like we were talking about when we were Jay and I were working on the script at that time, and and stuff that we can talk about later. But this is so there's going to be a big memory lane for both of us in this, but I'm here at Allan's home. And the last time I was here was 35 years ago in your studio. We were recording our own version of the 12 Days of Christmas. We'll get to that too. But let's go where I always go. You're from Wallaceburg originally? Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. Did you grow up there? Or did you? Yeah, I grew up in Wallaceburg. Born in Chatham in those days because there was no hospital in Wallaceburg yet until about the following year, just maybe 6 months later or something. So it says Chatham on my birth certificate, but south side of town, wartime housing, but good family life, good friends. We played a lot of sports, got into music, had some. I played in the band, played clarinet at W.T. Lang, which was like the middle school, as they call it now, or junior high, senior public, I think they called it. Yes, right. And then went to sax in high school for a while. How'd you get into the music? Like, where did that come from? Well, my family was all playing piano when I was a little kid, right? And so I was the one on the piano when bugging them, like playing the while they're trying to play, right? And my sister Judy, who's about 3.5 years older than me, took a lot more classical lessons. She went through Royal Conservatory and then took harmony and all this stuff to be a teacher as well. And I got out of that. I took maybe 4 or 5 years of conservatory, but she switched me into popular music because she could see I wasn't really into the, I do like classical music, but at the time. So then you were a young fella. You wanted to rock and roll. So I was heading in that direction, and then I started learning on my own. I got all these books. There was no internet. No, so it wasn't like now where you can get YouTube. You had to go to a store, buy the sheet music, right? And so I had at first, because my ear hadn't developed yet, just to listen to stuff and figure it out yet. Yeah. Because I was coming kind of from a musical background, and I was trying to convert to where I could play in bands and all that, right? Yeah. So I ended up getting a book of chords that was a Hal Leonard book. They're a publisher, right? Yeah. But it was all just a 2-page thing of all these chords. And so then I could play along with the guitar players and all that. And then I started learning more about changing the chords up and making them, make it your own. And so, and I did more of that. And I could still read music, but I didn't prefer to read and play off of the sheet music. Yeah. I started doing that. So that's how that started. But, and then, it developed where I played in some bands, where, a little rough at first, but I was trying to emulate. Who is it? And it just takes time, and and I wasn't singing much back then. I was doing backups, and then I started singing probably in my late teens, early 20s more. Yeah. And and so took it from there. And instruments and everything, and the technology. I mean, again, we're going back a long time. It was way different
then and we'll show this at some point. But there's a piano here. Talk about this piano here, and what's it called again?
Yeah, it's a 1913 Heinzmann upright grand, and it was actually the story about that is my parents had an old piano that was like a converted player piano that had the pedal still on it, but it didn't work with the scrolls and the rolls and all that stuff. Yeah, but so this one, there was a teacher that was retiring from the high school that I had for a couple subjects, and his family had bought this originally, and his family out in Manitoba, it was out west in Brandon, Manitoba, in like 1916 or something. They had bought this piano, but it was made in 1913. Brought it all the way to Wallaceburg.
Wow!
And then for a while it sat at my parents' place, and then at one of my friends' place up here. When I was in Arizona for a while, my friend Bruce Slavenhoek had it at his place, and he and his mom had it there, and she was gonna dabble on taking some piano lessons, and then it came back here, but it's been really only two owners. Like if it was a car, right? You'd say, like, they were original owner, and but I wrote a lot of stuff on it, and it used to. It was very inspiring because they're very full sounding, very warm. Like we were saying, we were saying before we started that you can't really recreate that sound. Yeah. So that's and a big sentimental attachment. There for you as well. And it's and like say it's the real deal, and even the feel and that too. The keys and all that, and so that was with the piano.
Now before you got into music, sorry, Al, you worked at Esso.
Yeah, I worked for Esso Chem,
And what'd you do there?
I was a process operator.
Okay. So young fella, you went to school, you became a process operator, making good money probably for the time. And then at some point there had to be a decision you left there to go to music, recording, playing, all of the above, full time. Yeah. That had to be, how old were you when you made that decision?
Yeah, so I was coming up on 30.
Yeah.
And there were some things that happened that year.
Okay.
Like my uncle had passed away right around Christmas Day, and my dad had a stroke. And I went to find my uncle to bring him in for Christmas and found him that he was deceased. And I'm coming up on 30. I'm thinking about my life,
Sure.
And it's like they offered this career change package, and I really hadn't even thought about it. And I called all my closest friends, I talked to like John McIntyre, like I was saying, I talked to my parents, my sister, my brother, Paul Milne, Jim Barr, some of my friends from Wallaceburg I grew up with. And I just this is what I'm thinking about doing, right? And a lot of them could see I wasn't very happy like that, but that this is a big move because I was making really good money and everything, right? And I thought I was.
It's always the money thing, right?
Yeah. And I thought I was a lifer too, right? Yeah. Because it was such a good job and
security.
Yeah, and it did me really well, and I was able to I was already building up my studio and everything by that time, and I was doing that on the side because I was in process. I was working 3 on, 3 off, 3 on, 4 off, and I had a lot of time to be able to develop the business on the side, And we were talking earlier about how some of that happened too. Was I had met George Weber. At Process when I was taking the Lambton College, and and then through him I met Terry Titian. I met Bruce Dean, and we did speaker business for a while.
And building speakers.
Building speakers. Before I got into recording, really, I was just kind of doing that as a hobby. Okay. And then I decided to go into kind of a blanket company where I was still building the speakers, but I started recording, and it was 4-track, right? Out of reel to reel. Yeah. So
that's what we recorded down here. I think that was 4-track.
No, I had 16.
Did you have 16 at that time?
Yeah.
But I remember it was like a reel to reel.
Yeah, but it was reel to reel.
Yeah.
So I went from that. Yeah, and I went from that 4-track to an 8-track Otari. The 4-track was like a Akai. Okay, so it was still a decent, machine, and it had it's called a Akai Quadrasync, and it had this, so there was no delay. Because before that it was like, well, how do you not have it all you're trying to sing and the things
Yeah,
you know, yeah. So
I just splice stuff. Like I don't even get that.
Yeah, and I did some splicing. So I ended up getting this Otari 8-track, which was like really cool machine. And that's when I built the studio at the back of the house. My dad helped me do that.
Yeah.
And you know, like a little studio room back there, and I was recording upstairs and so on. But eventually I went to 16, and I was in this room we're in now. And the bathroom wasn't there. That was at the back of the house still, before that was torn out for the lake view.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and so anyways, through the people that I met, you know, and this too, that really helped a lot because, you know, the people like, John McIntyre, he was playing on the road with like Michael Quattro and all those people that I was mentioning. And he was instrumental, literally, and, you know, in helping me get a lot of my originals, you know, higher quality, because I was just, you know, learning how, you know, guitar I'd only picked up for a few years by that time and so on, and I was mostly a keyboard player. And so, you know, people like that, Paul Milne was always there for me, like for, you know, audio stuff. And then Terry Titian, you know, a great local musician. And Brendan and Terry, I used to always...
They were one of the first ones that I met downtown too at Mr. Mike's. They would play back when they did matinees there, and it was them, and that's how I met George as well, and Sue, and you think I mean, obviously those people, and we think of those people as local people, but they really did do a lot of traveling. A lot of people. I interviewed Sue Weber a while ago, and she talked about that. That's helped you along the way. Then obviously having the right impact, and I always, you know, surround yourself with the right people. Yeah,
and all of them were really supportive. And like I would in the early days, a lot of times, like when the Good Time Band was going with, you know, in the early days of the Good Time Band was, you know, and Rick Steves as well, from different eras, Rick's, you know, great. And Rick's come in the studio again later as well, and but all the, you know, they actually were Rick and Sue McIntyre to become, with George and Sue. And then they would bring in people all the time. Like they had all these shows where, okay, now we're going to bring in Terry Danko, you know, Rick Danko's brother from the band. Right. And Terry had recorded with all these people. Like I'm like, wow, this is, you know, it's crazy. I get to be friends with a lot of these people. But I was taking pictures. And Jerry Baird, I was talking about, who was an amazing guy. Yeah. And he passed away, you know, several years ago, and you know he was in the ring, like I said, with Bruce Dean and John McIntyre, which was a big Sarnia band playing at Huey's Junkyard and all that stuff. Oh my God, I
lived across the street growing up at Huey's Junkyard when I was a little kid.
Oh yeah. And
I never, you know, by the time I was old enough to go into a bar, I was already elsewhere.
It was
that was the place.
And we used to come up from Wallaceburg then, and before I even knew anybody up here, and they were playing, and the ring played at the Wallaceburg Inn before I knew any of those guys. And then later I'm going, wait, I saw you guys, just like Max Webster.
Sure, right, yeah,
they did too. And I know Dave. Dave helped me out a lot too. Like he played on some stuff early too, and Dave Miles, the bass player, right, and Gary McCracken, and you know, and Gary Stag and Doe, or Stag, not Sag and Doe, was held in my studio while it was still just drywall.
Oh wow!
And it was like,
did the jam session break out?
It didn't, you know, because I think it was just supposed to be about the beers and then the boys and that
beers and the stories.
But it was so soundproof. See, as you know from being in,
right.
You couldn't hear anything outside.
No.
And so
great place to have a party.
Right. Yeah.
Make all the noise you want, guys.
Yeah. So like the people were parking down like away from, you know, because I only had so much parking.
Right.
And all these people were walking in from parking on Murphy Road down there or whatever. And walking in, and all of a sudden they open the door, and it's like we used to call it the Ken Hotel on a Saturday night, but it's like, you know,
the noise would come out,
the noise, like Mr. Mike's on a busy night or something, right? But yeah, so I thought about that the other day because the control room window was cut out, but there was no glass in it yet or any frame.
Oh, okay.
So John, and I think John just picked a piece of drywall and he went across and zigged it on there. And then he put up a sign, you know, 2 for $5 or something for the beer sign. So that was the bar. And the control room part was the bar, and nice. For the party. And yeah, and so, but Gary came in and did some some projects and stuff too.
So obviously the right choice for you to leave a very stable job. Scary, I'm sure, especially at that age, but obviously your passion. Yeah. Speaking of passion, passion for fashion.
Oh yeah, that's.
I remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that you produced that here in your studio.
Yeah, that was one of mine, and
that was on a 45, if I remember.
Yeah, and the other side was Dancing on the Wall.
Right.
It was the Berlin Wall when it fell. Yeah. And we decided to put something out in a hurry, and it was my, I drove the whole thing, as far as producing and writing, but I did have some really good players came in and helped me do it.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of guys. Modern Frontier was this band from the States that I had done a little bit of recording work with, and they're almost like a Rush kind of a, they really liked that kind of Rush music and that, and the guitar player was a cross between maybe that and maybe like Edge, the Edge. Yep. Just using these delays that certain ways and really good tone, and so they came in and did. There was a song called Up From Here. Do you remember that one I got on the radio in Toronto and that? That was, I had it on a CD, and I used to play it sometimes. But you were working different nights than me.
Yeah. I just remember, I remember Passion for Fashion because it was
on the 45.
45.
Yeah, I have it somewhere.
And when I started there, and when you were there, it's like we had 2 record players.
Yeah.
And we had 2 tape decks that were dual. And then CDs came in,
and
we added in that too. We had all 3 different styles. Yeah. We were only missing the 8-track.
I know. We never, went down that far down the food chain or whatever. But I know, right? Yeah. Oh, the first.
But I remember playing it because even when you were there on the nights I was there, I'd be like, "Hey, I'd play that," and that was that was quite a project for you.
Yeah, there was that one. I did 2 45s. There was another 45 that was probably there too. One was called Same Old Crowd, and the other one was On Monday. And On Monday was there was part rap, and it was almost like Depeche Mode or something. The other part,
yeah, cool.
And Doug Babcock, a local guy, was involved with that, and we were called Audio Mirage. That was before the Dumb Brother one.
Oh yeah.
And my brother still doesn't forgive me. He thinks I was talking about him, about Dumb Brother.
Dumb Brother.
But right. I know. Like it's like, man.
You reassured him though.
Yeah, I reassured him. It wasn't about that. I don't know if I can. How far can I explain on this?
Well, hey, I don't know.
You can always beep it, right?
It's your interview. But you set him straight though.
Yeah, I set him straight that it was, yeah.
You've done, you talk about the music and the recording and, all the people. We could probably do a 10-part docuseries here on Allan Hill. But let's shift gears a little bit. I want to come back to the music, but let's talk about some of this stuff here.
Oh,
This is with, we'll talk about it, Vampire Heart. Which was a play? Yeah,
it was a musical that when I was still living in Arizona when I decided to go kind of fully ahead with trying to write something based around the Dracula story.
Right.
And this was before Twilight and all that stuff. And I think the Francis Ford Coppola movie had come out with Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman and all that.
Yes.
And so there was always something there, right? Kind of like almost like, I'm not saying The Phantom, but I was more in that genre, like you know what I mean, of thinking it was a good idea and that the story and everything always kind of. So at the time, and so I started going through the book and actually writing stuff based on key parts of the book. Like there's a part where he says, he's trying to explain why he likes the darkness and all this to people that, he's trying not to tell him he's a vampire or whatever. But it's like, I love the shade and the shadow, and when I was younger, I loved the sparkling water and not the sparkling waters of my youth and all this. Well, you can't be out in the sun and all this.
Right.
And so I would take those and I would use those in some of the songs because the book went into public domain, right? So,
I see.
So I could use, but I already had some songs from just previous stuff I was writing that didn't fit into the rock stuff I was doing or whatever, right? That I kind of converted over into using for it. So long story, even longer.
It's okay.
Yeah, what happened was I had been doing the writing, and when I was living in Arizona, my neighbors that I stay with when I'm down there now, we used to live outside of Tucson, and we had 4.5 acres each and all that. And so when you're out in the country, you're helping your neighbors a lot, right? Because you're all each other has a lot of times, and
community.
So I really connected with my neighbors too during the time I was writing this stuff, and they were really supportive, and I could bounce ideas off. This is what I'm thinking, and all this stuff, right? And so it kind of it was going pretty good at that time and kind of percolating, and then I was on my way back. I was in a Southwest. I used to call it the cattle call, Southwest Airlines, because you don't have an assigned seat.
Oh yeah.
It's like a something to something. You get your boarding pass.
It's A to W.
Yeah. Now you're up. It's your turn to go in your line, and then you go and find a seat.
Herding cattle.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I hear this guy talking right about. Oh, I've got a. Yeah. No, I'm writing the play. I'm not an actor or blah blah blah. And I was kind of. Yeah, it's a musical, and I just heard him, while you're standing around waiting for whatever. Yeah. And so then when I went on the plane, I saw nobody was sitting beside him, so I went and sat beside him, and he goes, he says, well, I'll tell you what, I've got this play. I took this course, this workshop for 2 years in Chicago, 1 weekend a month for 2 years. I had to apply for it, and there was a tuition and all that, but it's almost like in, New York, University of New York class only really concentrated into weekends for people that, can't go full time to school and all that, right? So he says, if you come, I'll introduce you to the people that run the course and all this stuff. And so I end up going to Chicago to watch his play. And he says, oh yeah, if you buy tickets for the play, I'll take you out to dinner and all that. So we went down there and saw the play, and it was really good. And I met the guy, but he was busy, that was running the course and everything, and he gave me all the information to apply. So I had all this music, and I had a rough kind of an idea. I didn't know how to put it together. I'd never done.
So you got it in here, but you didn't know how to get it down here.
Or how to even, So I put what I had almost like a synopsis, and what this kind of like what this songs, how they tied into the story.
Okay. And
I had this music box idea that was like kind of when they would play it, they would hear this tune, and then that would kind of mesmerize them. That was Dracula sending this, which wasn't in the story, and that was my take on, you know. And so that was a theme that I had already had, this musical theme that sounds like a music box. Cool. And so anyway, I go in there, and I end up applying to this course after that, and I got a half tuition, so I got half of my tuition covered on like a mini scholarship.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So they at least,
Cool.
Yeah, and so then I started taking the train. This was like 2008 or so.
All right.
So, because I didn't know how to put, I'm not even really that, I hate to say it, but I'm not really that into musical theater, like as far as that it's a big thing with me. I was always more into rock music and a lot of different music, reggae and country,
Yeah, you're eclectic for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so it ended up being like where I would go to Chicago, and I'd either take the train out of Port Huron, which was a really good deal, or I'd fly sometimes I would fly, and I'd spend a weekend a month kind of in Chicago, and this went on for almost 2 years. Sometimes I couldn't make it or whatever, and I learned a lot about writing as well, not just for the musical. I actually dropped the musical for a while, and I was writing with this lady that did this whole other thing that was being promoted to Disney and everything.
Oh wow!
And we were getting shopped by an agency in New York City, and it was like here I'm doing the Disney thing over here, and I got the vampire thing over here.
Yeah,
and it wasn't too extreme.
That's a crossover.
Yeah, but because I, like you said, the eclectic part, right? Of writing, I would just want to try to write good music if I can.
You just want to do, don't you, Al? You just want to keep going. Try this and try this, and I would be remiss, and I would be shot probably if we didn't mention this guy over here, like Jay Peckham. He's in my. I can't get rid of the guy. He's in my life everywhere. But he directed it.
Yeah, he directed it, and he came in and basically Glenn Kennedy, who also had a major part in it because I brought Glenn in to write the stage play. And then Glenn and I co-wrote the stage play, basically the initial version, with Glenn doing the actual physical writing, but me taking stuff to Chicago, reading it in class, bringing back notes and everything from what, getting the feedback from, and I would even sit with the director of the class, basically, who had, went back and forth to LA, this guy, like on the Monday after the weekend, sometimes for a couple hours before my train or something, and he would give me more time, like just because he knew I was, into it. Once it started going, right, once I took it off the back burner and started, and so then we would take that feedback, and then Glenn would do some rewrites, come back, and then we'd go over it all and all that. So
you mean you don't just sit down and start writing?
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah, and you do for brainstorming.
The ideas for brainstorming, for sure.
Sure you do, Yeah, and so then Jay came in, and Jay was brought in by Amy Maya.
Oh, yeah.
And because she was singing one of the leads, right? Like the main lead, Mina. And Sarah J. Murray was singing the other lead.
That's right.
Their voices were amazing together. And I have some, I'll get you some music too, just for your, to catch you up on the library. But yeah, they were incredible. And so we needed the Arthur character, and she brought Jay in. And so this was the first time, and then we had some trouble at the theater, and we had to reschedule without getting into a lot of details. That's one of those things I won't go into too deeply. But Jay came in to direct, to grab the bull by the horns and the vampire by the fangs or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
and then he really made it happen. And Jay and I, I love the guy, man. He's an amazing guy. And and like you say, you came across us at Coffee Culture.
Oh, yeah, right. I ran into you guys that day, and it's like Jay helps me with the Sarnia Sting games, the broadcast. And then I saw you, and that was kind of another reconnection for us, too, because I hadn't really seen you at Rob and Diane's yet. Yeah. I was like, oh, there's Allan. Boy, I hadn't seen him in years. And then I feel like, and I don't know what your beliefs are or whatever, but laws of the universe. Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of that, quite honestly, has brought us to sitting here at your table. Yeah. And maybe we didn't know it 35 years ago coming to the studio. Yeah,
no, I know.
That this would happen, right?
And I was also saying, like, I really like what you're doing. I've been going, wow, just mostly it's the inspiration part of it, like of what you keep doing and all the really, inspiring things even you're saying and trying to keep positive about everything. I know everything can't be all the time, but that's what if we can put out that positive energy, and we also attract positive energy and all that too, like to say, so that is so cool though, because we also go back a long ways, right? Yeah. And I know, and running into each other, it's like, I know.
I appreciate you saying that.
No, for sure.
I like doing what I do. Well, Jay keeps threatening that he wants to interview me.
Oh, yeah.
I havened given him permission yet. Yeah. I've had a few people say, I want to interview you.
I don't
know.
I know.
It's be weird to be on that. I've been interviewed a couple. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
On that side of it, right? Yeah, because I was almost thinking about that tonight because of what you've done, right? And I'm interested in all the stuff
Maybe I should have, like, you who's known me for 35 years, maybe a Jay, maybe should have like 3 or 4 different people segment. Anyway,
put it in there. Yeah.
Enough about me. We'll get to that at some point.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah.
I have a feeling that'll come about. Because this isn't, and you say that about me, and I appreciate that, but you're inspiring to me at the same time. Like, I remember,
that's awesome. I'm glad,
like I say, I was 19 years old, wet behind the ears, ready to take on the world. Thought I knew everything, of course. Probably some arrogance in there. And definitely was some arrogance in there. But that's growing. And for me to go back and then see that, and, again, like watching each other from afar kind of thing. And this... because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. This is life experience. Yeah. This is not knowing how to do something, but willing to, like, you are constantly, I think, as a successful writer, producer, musician, you're constantly stepping out of your comfort zone, I would think.
Yeah, I don't know that I always want to, but it seems to happen that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something that drives me to do that too, that if I'm too I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. If I, goal oriented, I guess.
Yeah,
just trying to instead of just breathing air and,
Do you write it down? Do you write your goals down?
When I, sometimes I'll go away for a little while, like on when I get a break from here, and that's when I'll really take a step back and just look at the big picture. Yeah. And then I write all kinds of goals and everything, and I'll write long-term goals. Yeah. And I'm the memo guy, like at work as well as, I have memos on the computer, I have my day timer, and I have, so I write a lot of stuff down, and I like those long-term goals too.
Yep, for sure.
So I guess they say something like, hey, if you don't, have a destination in mind, how are you going to get there? You can map it out that way a little bit. And if it changes, things change, right?
Well, there's always construction along the way. There's detours, whatever, just like driving a car to a destination. Yeah. And I say that if my wife or my son were watching this, we're like, he's going to do the write it down question. Because I'm always saying, write it down. Yeah. If you don't want to forget anything or you get an idea, write it down or put it in your phone, whatever that is. Are you still writing music? Like, are we going to hear something new from Al? It's original soon, or?
Yeah, I hope so. To leave this behind 1 second. No, that's okay. There is some new stuff, but the Vampire Heart thing, because of the complexity of trying to redo the whole script and everything again, which Jay and I were working on for quite a while, and Glenn and I had modified. Then I did some modification, and Jay and I worked really hard at it. Yeah. I'm looking at maybe doing more like a musical review of Vampire Heart. Okay. And one of the guys that came over for the table reading that Jay and I had along with some of the actors that were originally in it, and we basically, kind of tried to get everybody's reaction and so on. But one of the guys that came over from the States that I work with, he was on the radio, Shawn Michaels on the radio in Port Huron for a lot of years. Yeah, yeah. You probably heard of him.
WPHM or something like that?
Yeah. I think he was on the sister station or something to WPHM. Yeah. And so we had this idea kind of him being almost like an Orson Welles character. Oh, yeah. And coming up to the big microphone. Yeah. And then narrating the story kind of, and then having the songs, and then maybe video and a little bit of pantomime of just song to song to tell the story. So it's not full stage for now, and doing a version like that so that the music.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Actually, and so, yeah. And I never thought, you'd be a good one for something like that too.
I've never done anything like that as for a play. I never really. I was at theater in high school, but I never really got. I've been asked many times. Yeah. The problem that I had was I was as a DJ and whatever I was doing. I was 5 nights a week. Work. I couldn't commit. Right.
And it does take a lot of committing.
And it's just not fair to everybody else to say yes and then not do it.
Oh yeah, and so that's kind of leaving that behind. So that's
a nice vision.
And there's some people that I'm in contact with that I was mentioning. That right now I don't want to say too much more until they commit, to it. For sure. To have a smaller group of musicians, some of them from the Port Huron side, and some of them like the ISO and that type of thing. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and I know I can say Tessa because Tessa has totally. She played flute in the original.
Tessa is fantastic. If you haven't seen that interview, I'll put a link down below. That I interviewed her a while ago. And she's just a fun, nice lady too.
She's amazing.
She's so kind.
Yeah, she's amazing, and I know that she's been so supportive. As well as being she could read from sheet music you give to her, a chord chart you give to her, a paper napkin you give to her, right? Just play it by
bit of a show off, eh?
Play it by ear,
right?
Play it by ear, Tess. Any level of that, and that was so wonderful. And she was so supportive of the music. And I'd run into somebody that was in the symphony, and they'd say, "Well, Tessa said it was really good music." I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Wow. You're fortunate though because you've built. Because of your eclecticness, is that the right word? You've got multiple circles that you can pull from. From classic to rock to country to two sides of the border. Is music much different from here to Port Huron?
I don't think a ton. Like, there's people that kind of go back and forth that kind of, it's a hybrid almost here at the border. And it kind of always has been.
We're like a hub.
Yeah, because like I was talking about when John McIntyre, and he was playing with Dave Kay over there, then ended up playing with Nugent and that. Dave Caswini. And all those guys, right? And they were my friends over there, a bunch of them. And those guys, Bruce Dean played with them too. And all these guys that were back and forth, Greg Colby, there's, several of them that played, on both sides of the border, and, went and played down at Kent State and, and all these different places, and, both sides, and there's a Blue Water. Did you know about the reunion thing that happened in Port Huron? It's a bunch of the older musicians that go over. It's like a reunion of the Blue Water area musicians. Yeah, I'll have to get you an invite to the next one or something. It's really cool. Like,
it would be.
Like, all these people come back from wherever they are to. Like like Dave Kay is in Nashville promoting, right? They had Jason Aldean or something one time his agency that he worked for, and but he's playing with one of the guys that was at Nugent too, what's his name, Derek St. Holmes or whatever. Anyway, he sang some of the songs, and but anyway, so there's all these guys that come to this thing, okay, and so there's still cross pollination, I guess, between the two. Not a huge. It's not like a line, where you can say this is Sarnia, this is Port Huron.
It's kind of like
meshed. Yeah, they've got their own thing, but as well. But there's people that kind of go back and forth.
Do you still play out in the public?
Not lately.
No. Why not?
It doesn't. I know, right?
I know. I have an idea what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's. I get such more satisfaction out of creating original material, and if I got the point, like, I'd like to do maybe a show of all originals, maybe at the library or something even.
Or the ISO. They got that new location downtown.
Oh yeah.
That's all like set up now. You can go in there. I'm sure Wing would love to have you come in there. Or the library. Yeah, it's
depending on how it went, right? Even something like that, and mainly that. Like, I was enjoying. I did some First Fridays. I was playing for a while down at Gourmet Passions for like once a month, right?
Yeah.
And that I like because it just kind of kept my chops up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm, I don't spend a lot of time on cover tunes.
Yeah.
But I put myself into it if I'm playing.
Well, it's kind of the double-edged sword. I remember talking to I can't remember which one it was. One of the guys from Platinum Blonde years ago.
Yeah.
And we got talking like off camera, and he said, they used to start playing. They were a cover band.
Yeah.
And then they had these originals, and they would just sneak the original in there. They wouldn't even say, and this is one of our originals.
Right.
It's like, we didn't need the recognition.
Yeah.
We just put it in there, and then those started working, and then people would come up and say, hey, what's that song? And then next thing you know, we're Platinum Blonde, and we're playing all our own original stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, people go out, if they go to a bar, they want to dance, they want to hear what they know, whatever.
Yeah.
But there are places, I agree, like, and the First Friday is like, it's once a month, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you'd love to be playing 5 days a week if someone would pay you enough to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean...
is going out and doing that, I want to talk, I asked Sue Weber this, I asked a few others, about the money.
Right.
Musicians today, and at least in Sarnia, are getting paid close to the same as what they were getting paid 35 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't necessarily want to get into whose fault that is, whether it's the bar or the musician who doesn't know how to say no. But it's I feel like it's shifted in the sense of, like, if you play a First Friday, you're playing a First Friday to put yourself out there and go, here's some new music, and if you like it, go online and buy my. You don't even say
Right.
buy my CD anymore.
Right.
do
Yeah,
you,
I know, right? It's like my download card.
Do you feel like that's kind of what it is now, or?
Yeah, I do. Like, you know, you don't make any money for playing out.
Yeah.
You're hauling gear around like crazy.
I know.
The guys that are like weekend warriors that work in the plants or whatever want to go out and make some beer money.
That's
and,
okay.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I could see that, but yeah, you know, and there's things like backyard parties, stuff like that. That's where I would tend to get
private stuff.
Yeah, gigs like that and
corporate.
Yeah, well, yeah, that kind of thing, and because I switch between keys and guitar, right, and singing.
Yeah.
So that. You know, I play my acoustic for a while, and then
switch it up to the keys.
Switch to the keys, and then go back and forth. And I do everything from Rat Pack stuff to Bowie to some country.
You're a big Bowie fan, though.
Yeah, I know you knew that. Yeah,
I remember. I pay attention.
Yeah, I got my Ziggy Stardust coasters around it.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, see, they're not on this.
How do we? But how do we? And I'm getting a little serious here. But how do we switch that? Can we go back to a musician around here, local musician, getting paid really well like they did back in Huey's Junkyard days?
Yeah, I think, you know, like you said, the situation, I think it really started when, you know, we went from 6 nights, like at the station and all that stuff, drinking and driving, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I think, you know,
it's smart
for
to
sure.
not drink and drive.
Yeah.
But it was a different time.
Yeah, and everybody was out partying. A lot of, you know, shift work town. So some people's weekends. A lot of money
around.
Yep, a lot of money. Plus weekends might be on a Tuesday and Wednesday night or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they're out partying, and you know, and it could still do that if people would be more, would be smarter about taking Uber or cabs or whatever.
Yeah.
That could maybe. But yeah, so if the bar's not making money, you know.
Yeah, and that's it too, because I come from that part of my world for a while too, and it was like, you know, if I could have Bob Seger play in my little bar that holds 100 people, it's not worth. I can't afford to pay him what he's worth because I want to make. I'm there to make money.
Yeah,
the bottom line is the bottom line for everybody. Yeah. But the price of a beer has gone up. Why hasn't the price of a musician gone up?
Yeah.
Or, you know, and I know there used to be, were you in the union? There was a union?
I had been at times, but then it didn't really do anything. So nobody would join after a while because of that. You know, if somebody wanted not to pay you, you know, the union wouldn't hardly ever do anything.
Couldn't do anything. Yet you were paying them.
Yeah. I remember the Wallaceburg end.
Musicians are getting screwed. I said it out loud.
Yeah. Well, it's true because, you know, we were all talking about that. It's like, you know, they want you to play. Like, okay, so $100 is kind of what people talk about.
$100 a head. You got a 4-piece band.
Right.
You need $400. Well, make it a 2-piece band.
Right. So that's kind of what they want to do. They want you to. That's why the duos and trios and that are going so good. Even the guys with the computer backtracks or whatever, because the bar is trying to.
Person I got to pay.
They're keeping their overhead down, and I've got some friends playing a lot of bars in like Port Huron and that too, right? Mm-hmm. And it's about the same, you know, same thing they're dealing with. Like my buddy Greg Campbell. I go out and kind of, you know, do some help with software stuff with him. He's getting into recording, but he's an amazing guitar player.
Nice.
And they play at the Tally Ho out there.
The Tally Ho, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was in there. They got me up to do a song with them.
I spent several summers at the Tally Ho. Yeah, my Mr. Mike's days.
Oh, yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's small, eh?
That's on Christmas all year round, still there at the Tally Ho?
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, it used to be.
Yeah. And,
there used to be, Sing Along with Mel.
Oh, yeah.
Was it an old, well, I was 21 at the time, and Mel was old at the time. And it was kind of like karaoke, because that's what I was doing at the time. And he'd go up and play a guitar, and then he had all these washboards and sandpaper boards
stuff
and
for
spoons,
other people to play.
And he'd just hand it out to the crowd, and that was Sing Along with Mel.
Yeah, I never even knew about that one. I did know about the Tally Ho back in those days, but then but they play like downtown as well, and they'll play like the Outpost and.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
that's still going too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't gone over to anywhere in I saw a picture of the brass rail the other day, and I spent a lot of time there too.
Yeah,
spent a lot of time in bars. I'll say it.
I've got friends that the brass rail thing. And then we're going to the brass rail. Wow. You know?
Yeah.
And even somebody just said that at the. I think it was on this side talking about the brass rail. Mm-hmm. But but it is the same story over there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that are trying to make a living out of it can't really just do that.
You can't just do it in one town, though. You have to travel, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then the other thing, Dave, too, is, and you're probably aware of this, but before, bigger bands, or if you say you're on your way, you're an opening act, like say one of your Border Fest people or whatever, right? Okay, you would tour to support your record sales. Right. And that's what they did. They put people out there. You always heard the stories about, I don't want to be on the road this much, but the record company has us doing it, right, to support the record. Well, where's the sales now, right? Streaming doesn't get anything hardly, unless you're
not on Spotify.
No, you got to get something placed in a movie or a soundtrack or whatever, right? So like the whole thing is now touring, making the money from the touring and the tickets and that has become a big thing, and that's where they make, like Brian Doherty, right? My buddy that He played on a lot of he helped me out a lot too, Brian. He's played.
I interviewed him a long time ago.
Yeah. And so he's doing basically playing on some of my stuff that I'm going to be releasing, the rock stuff. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That we didn't get it. Yeah. He played on Tony Zangoli played on.
Tony.
Because they were in the same band.
Tony's a great drummer.
Yeah, he is. He's amazing, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. But yeah, so. It's, he was telling me, Brian was telling me that they were starting to do stuff like the touring was where they were actually making some money, because streams don't get it. People aren't buying physical CDs. Now merch, if you sell merch.
T-shirts.
Yeah, you're right. That's physical. Hey, give me something. Here's I get the money. You get the T-shirt or whatever. So that's a way of making money. So on tour, the T-shirts, the whatever merch they have, and but some people are doing download cards.
Yes.
Right, and like you can get a whole bunch of download cards for like 50 cents each. Right, and so then people, you can include them with your ticket if there's a cover or whatever.
Right,
and it's a good way of kind of doing something, and rather than just trying to do it on streaming and that, because unless you hit the big time. There's no, so now it's like playing, like say touring, Anyway, that was a little aside there, but
it's I kind of go back to the First Friday thing. Like that's the business card now. I feel like giving out a CD, because you can make a CD and duplicate it pretty cheap now, a couple bucks maybe. Yeah. And it's like, here's my business card. Here's my business card. But when I come to your town, please buy a ticket.
Yeah.
Or a T-shirt or whatever. So it's kind of. I feel like music, in a sense, as far as how it's put out, like vinyl or 8-track to being digital, has definitely shifted, obviously. But I feel like the marketing has kind of shifted back the other way. Like it was just, it's kind of shifted back the other way again, right?
Totally.
And musicians, and they have to learn to promote themselves, right? And not everybody is that. Like maybe you're just a guitar player. I don't mean just a guitar player. I mean you're the guitar player, and that's what you should do.
Yeah.
And this guy over here should be the manager. Yeah. And they got rid of managers and all that for a while because everybody's like, well, I don't want to pay anybody. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like selling your own house.
Yeah, because there isn't. Yeah, exactly. And because there isn't that much money to go around or whatever, right? Yeah. Like, so everybody's like, well, where can we cut?
So get out there and support local.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd be remiss too. Like a couple of the guys from the music store. I was talking about Andrew Lloyd. He's in the ISO as well. He's a bass player. He's played on some of those gigs with Al Weiss and that.
Oh yeah,
he does gigs with him and that. And Gary McCrack and Al Weiss and him. They did stuff at the Mitten, at the Jazz and Blues in the Village.
Yep.
That was so. He came in here. What was strange when I went to work at the music store in Port Huron. He recognized me from when he was about 18 or 19. He came in to do a job with a guitar player from Chris Schrader or something like that from Port Huron. And Gary McCracken, we got him to play drums. And so and Andrew Lloyd ended up going off to university, and then years later he's at the music store when I went there to apply just as a side thing, working in Port Huron, and he's come over and played on a few tunes for me. Right. On it, including about 3 of them are going to be on my album that I'm going to put out, and it's going to be a calling card album. It's just going to be
cool,
like this. And Lee Galbraith, another friend of mine, a really good guitarist from work, that he's also he's played on a few tunes, and including the one that Brian and I had started, Brian Doherty and I had started. That is this really big one that I wanted to have done actually to play it totally for you. After I'll play, let you hear what I'm doing with it. It's just not quite done yet.
Sure.
So those guys have been a big support too now. But yeah, and there's a lot of other people too, that have really helped me along the way.
When's the book coming out, Al?
Yeah, this is the book. This is the audio book, I guess, Dave.
Right? Yeah, it could be. Right?
Yeah. Well, just like you, there's been a lot of different turns and twists and turns in the path, and it's good, and everything.
No sight of stopping for Al Hill. You just
I don't
keep
think
going.
so. No, I play pickleball too.
Do you really?
Yeah. So I think that's my latest kind of fitness thing.
And you're also a Lions fan. He's got the Lions T-shirt on here.
Oh yeah, this was for Christmas.
Now, have you always been a Lions fan?
Even when they're 0-16, I gotta admit, I would walk in the other room and just shake my head. But and that's the thing. This is why it's so sweet for me right now, is because I started watching the Lions back in the day with my dad.
Okay.
Because there were out of Detroit. We're in Wallaceburg, Detroit television, just like almost everybody, right?
WKBD.
Yeah. And so they played in the Tiger Stadium at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the old Tiger Stadium.
Wow.
Before they went to the Silverdome and all that. And I don't know if they had anywhere in between. I don't think so. I think the Silverdome got built. But yeah, and I remember one time they were playing. My dad bet me $1 that the Lions would lose. Right, and he was just trying to get pushing my buttons, right, because he knew I was, and the guy, my aunt comes in and goes, he's going to make that kick, and I goes, it's 63 yards, he isn't going to make that kick, it's never been done. It was Tom Dempsey that was the first field goal record, and he kicks a 63-yarder, and the Lions lost by this record field goal, so
they still lost.
Yeah, and so it was a flashback to when. There was a 66-yarder by Baltimore by Justin Tucker only last year or so that the Lions, it even hit the crossbar, and they on the last play of the game or whatever, that they lost that one on the new record.
Right.
But no, it's just like, so there's been moments that haven't been the best with being a Lions fan. But Barry, when I was living in Arizona, and Barry was big, and all these young guys that were, they're living in Arizona, and they're like, Lions, they'd see my hat or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Barry, man. They love Barry, and they love Megatron and, Calvin Johnson. And so, I've
you're a hockey fan too?
Yeah, I'm a Leafs fan.
Yeah. So you're waiting for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was 11 years old the last time they won,
Wow.
Yeah.
I call Leaf fans, they're zealots.
Yeah.
They're zealots.
Yeah.
And a zealot, you can't screw up enough. They still love you.
Yeah. Well, I get into some pretty intense, conversations and kind of analysis on things. As far as the lack of getting a good defense man, for how long,
what's the problem, Al?
Yeah, what's, why can't you just, realize that you guys need better D, and get somebody instead of just because you're packing the stands, so you want to just play all offense and no D.
Everybody still keeps buying a ticket. They don't need to win the cup.
Well, that was in the Ballard days,
right? And
he would get one good, he'd have a Wendell, or he'd have right, and that was the time when I just was like, oh my God, I can't even watch these guys, and I still would just kind of
still go.
I still follow it, but I would,
I just don't know that I want to be. I definitely don't want to be in Toronto.
Oh yeah.
When they win the cup.
Oh no.
Because I think the CN Tower's coming down that day. Like I don't even think I want to be in Sarnia. Like whatever.
Oh my God. The whole province, right? Right. Maybe just like buses turning over and whatever. Chaos everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you talked about your dad there. What was he like? What's he like? Is he still?
No, he's been gone for quite a while. Yeah, he was a machinist in Wallaceburg at Wallaceburg Brass, Waltech.
Oh, okay, all right.
And he was a good guy. He wasn't a musician, but he was.
Did he support you making the decision?
Yeah, actually, he was really supportive about everything. When I even way back, like when I bought the keyboard and he bought me the amplifier when I got my first organ. Rock organ set up and all that. He would always make sure that I earned some of what I was doing.
Fair enough.
But he would support that. And they would leave the house on like a Saturday night to play cards down the street so we could jam in our living room. In this little, wartime house that we lived in. Because we didn't have a basement and a rec room or anything. We just, so the living room, was either
was the jam room.
Yeah, Brian Armitage or my cousin Dave Wicks or whoever was playing drums at the time, and that's come in and set the drums up in there, and I'm sure everybody could hear it down the street or whatever.
Wasn't soundproof back then.
No. yeah, and so but they were really supportive about doing that, because it's like, hey, we're not on the street, we're not, could be doing a lot worse things than supporting us, right?
Could be for sure. I just hate that I've got to end this now. But
I didn't even know how much time was.
We've come through so many twists and turns here, and this has been super enjoyable. I'm proud of you. I don't know if that means anything.
Likewise.
But I'm proud of you for.
I am too. Like I honestly am. That's what I think about. When I think about what you've done too, and it's so cool. I think we got to stay connected, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so much more. And you brought up some names that I haven't heard, like Gary McCracken and Paul Milne and all those, there's just so many that
and losing Paul lately was a big
that was very
thing.
recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, and when I would I do mixes and here in the studio, and Paul was building all these amazing amplifiers. He had all these other things he did. We sailed in the North Channel. We played squash since the late 70s together, almost like once a week when I lived in town or were around. And so we were really, really good friends. But his ear and everything, I would trust him to play stuff for him, and he would be my other set of ears on his big system. I could hear my mixes on there too. And then just a best friend. I'm very blessed to have a few best friends, and awesome. So he was a very, very much a part of my musical journey too. Mm-hmm. And the home wrecker amplifiers and as well, and everything that he did, and just an amazing guy. Really, his family as well are just, I love them, and it's a tough one, when you lose people, like that. That was a real close one, and it's family, right? It's like family.
Puts it in perspective sometimes.
Well, it also happens, right? So I don't know about you, but the other thing is, as we're getting a little bit older, too, when somebody close to you goes like that, there's different ways you can take it, trying to live for them, inspired to try to do more, to get your things done, being in touch with your own mortality a little bit, right? And and your health, everything, right? All those things combined, to try to live a good life for your friends that have gone on ahead too, right?
Yeah, I agree. Al,
so
thanks
Dave,
so much, my
awesome.
friend.
No, thank you. Fantastic. It's been amazing.
And there's so much more we got to talk about. We're just going to have to, I don't know, we'll give it 6 months and then we'll come back. I think he's probably going to show me some of the music that he's talked about here. And I do have one more really quick question. Do you still have the recording of the 12 Days of Christmas?
I was going to tell you that earlier. I had a cassette, and I think I ran it onto a MP3 or something. I have it somewhere on my computer. Yes, I do. And I know you're and Sonny ragging on.
Yeah, that was my part. Yeah. And Sonny ragging on me.
Yeah, and it was, and I know, and you always put a little extra into it too.
There,
you did.
And that was so. That's a memory that I like I can visit it all now, and you being the director, the producer, and all the hats, and that was so much fun.
One, and it's funny because earlier when you said it, I had run it off because I was going to try to get it to Sunny, right?
Right.
And then it never happened because I was going to, through Denise Mesco, I was going to, and she's friends of, that's how I ended up going into Mr. Mike's was Denise told me that they were looking for somebody, and she knew Sunny and all that.
Yep.
And Julie, Sunny's daughter.
Right, yep.
So that they were really tight, right? So that's how I ended up at Mr. Mike's kind of was, okay. And the first day I went in there, I was like, oh man, because I was not, used to being in that situation. Yeah. And the records are like skipping, like because there's all the smoke in there, and it's like, We
were constantly putting water on them.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't skip.
But anyway, so, but as it turned out, it turned out to be a really positive experience. I met a lot of really good people down there. Yeah. And also it opened up me to, a lot more socially to people and what people are going through and so on too.
Yeah.
And,
cool. Right on. Thanks again, Al.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, thanks to all of you for watching, and click the like and the love. But I will say, as always, click the share button. It's the most important button so we can share this part of Al's journey and everyone else that I have here on the show. But right now, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you again right here in the show. Bye for now.